Good evening, and welcome to The Way Out Show. I'm your host, Dane McCarthy, broadcasting to you from FEMA Region 5, deep in the bowels of the United Police State of Amnesia. Today is December 19th, 2014, and a lot of things are going on. Barack Obama is really feeling his oats in the last 2 years of his presidency. He's using his executive powers that are supposedly legal to transform the landscape as much as possible with the idea of codifying, solidifying, concretizing, whatever word you want to use, his legacy. It's all, at this point, it's really all about his legacy, and the cheerleaders on NPR and on television are happily reporting that he's finally making some decisions and getting things done, and he's going to be confronting Russia. And now we have a really important news story about a comedy movie called The Interview that was hacked by North Korea because it was a satire in which the North Koreans were the bad guys, and it's not even going to be released, apparently, to theaters. And they were talking about this today on NPR, and everybody's all upset and worried because the hackers said they're going to blow up the world, and it's going to make 9/11 look like a Sunday picnic with all these different, unless they didn't show this movie, The Interview. And also, I even read somewhere that there was a movie out that came out about 10 years ago with puppets. They're marionettes, and it was called Team America, World Police, and it was this really, really good movie, really funny, really satirical, and it also makes fun of Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, the little short guy with the bouffant haircut that made him look a little taller, he thought, maybe. But anyway, these little puppets sort of bouncing around and saying these funny things, these tough Americans. Well, anyway, somebody in response to this whole farce about The Interview decided they were going to do a showing of Team America, which also satirizes North Korea, like I was saying. And Sony, I guess, who owned the rights to that particular film, would not let them do it. And so this is, according to what I'm hearing on the radio, and is that this has now become a huge national security issue, and that they're actually talking about we might have a military confrontation with North Korea. And that this, of course, what is all about this about? This is incredibly ridiculous. This is almost, maybe even more ridiculous than Hillary Clinton getting up in front of Congress, and when she was Secretary of State after Benghazi, after 3 Americans were killed and the place was burned, the ambassador was killed in North Africa, and her saying that this all happened because, well, the Libyans who are Muslims saw this really cheesy, shitty, excuse my language, like a grade Z film about Muhammad, and they were so pissed off that they attacked the American embassy. And if you believe that, I got a bridge I want to sell you. This is the height of absurdity, and yet many people buy it because their trusted news anchors talk about it in this deadly serious voice, really scared sounding and really worried. It's like this big crisis that we're supposed to be hiding under our beds, I guess, because North Korea is going to attack us maybe. They're hackers. Well, reality is that it's very unlikely that North Korea had anything to do with this at all. And it was more likely a employee at Sony that just decided to get a little payback, probably pissed off about something. And I have a really good video, which is unfortunately mostly audio, but it does show some interesting headlines to show that I think it's Andrew Dice. He's a citizen reporter, fairly well known in the alternative news community. And so he looks at various headlines from places like Wired magazine and talks about how in reality it's very unlikely that North Korea had anything to do with this and the hack. In other words, they have no evidence. This is something that the White House is promulgating, and they sent out a press release, and these major news outlets just read the press release, essentially. This is the way much of the news is being reported. This is called reporting. This is more like, it's certainly not journalism, it's more like just being a mouthpiece for the administration. So let's go to this about 7.5 minute clip. It's pretty interesting, and then I'll get back and we'll talk more.
The now infamous hacking of Sony Entertainment may very well be either an inside job or a false flag operation designed to further clamp down on cybersecurity. While much of the American media is pointing the finger at North Korea, other outlets are casting doubt on this theory. It is a conspiracy theory, actually, that North Korea was involved in this. Here's an article out of PC World. Think North Korea hacked Sony? Think about this. It goes on to say that the hackers didn't really mention the interview at first, saying, quote, if the hack was about stopping the release of the interview, why didn't that come up earlier? For the first couple of weeks, the messages that accompanied leaked data didn't mention the movie at all. It was much more about Sony and its executives, leading to the idea that it was a disgruntled employee with internal access to their systems. Here's an article on Fox News that says, well, evidence in the Sony hack suggests that it's possible involvement by Iran, China, or Russia. So what is it? Is it North Korea, Iran, China, Russia? You know, it's a conspiracy theory that it is North Korea. Here's another article in Wired magazine that says the evidence that North Korea hacked Sony is flimsy. Here's from CNET, a popular tech blog. The FBI lacks evidence that North Korea is to blame for the Sony hack. Oh, they just lack the evidence. Whoops! Yes, here's the International Business Times. North Korea didn't hack Sony Pictures, but who the hell did? There is Radar Online raising the possibility that it's an inside job, pointing out that the FBI is actually focusing on a Sony employee as a potential source of the hacker leak. Here's another one. Was the Sony hack an inside job? Claims hackers had help from someone with intimate knowledge of the email system, revealing that hackers targeting Sony's computer system may have had inside help. Company executives believe hackers had inside knowledge of the system. Yes, but it's been blamed on one new film. Remember the iCloud hack where all the celebrities, A-list celebrity babes, had their personal, intimate, pornographic photos taken and released to the public? Well, that kind of got swept under the rug because it probably led back to a CIA contractor or to the CIA itself, and, well, that would be quite a big upset in national security if the general public were to realize that with a few clicks of a keyboard, virtually any NSA employee with the proper security clearance could do exactly what the iCloud hackers did. Edward Snowden, the NSA leaker, revealed the detailed names and activities and the power, the capabilities of a variety of NSA operations. Let's cover them briefly here. Interdiction is the plan where hardware is actually intercepted en route from UPS, and then they have little cellular modems installed and so then they can wirelessly transmit data back to the NSA, even if the computer is not or has never been connected to the internet. Underpass is the name of the system that the NSA has to manipulate online polls. They can restrict YouTube videos from going viral. That's called Silverload. Yes, or they can make them go viral if they want to, called Slipstream. I think back in the early days of YouTube, people would develop little bots and systems, little programs to artificially inflate the view counts on videos, and now YouTube verifies or supposedly verifies the views. But since YouTube is owned by Google, Google is working hand in hand with the NSA. They, of course, have the insider information to how their systems work. Slipstream allows them to make a video go viral. In fact, Operation Optic Nerve was the name of a program where millions of intercepted webcam feeds were scanned with facial recognition software to identify who it was that was having web chats over Skype and over Yahoo Chat. They collect naked and compromising photos of people so that they can be blackmailed or publicly humiliated by releasing them. That's called LoveInt. Get it? Love intelligence? Yes, thank you, Edward Snowden. The gift that keeps on giving. Of course, they have the ability to record every single phone call in the entire world. Not just a record of who called who and when it was made. I'm talking about the actual audio of the call. I've talked about this for 10 years now. In my 2005 book, The Resistance Manifesto, I talked about this system. I didn't have the name of it, but now thanks to Edward Snowden, we know that it is called Project Mystic. Of course, they can spoof anybody's email address and send emails under anyone's identity. That's Operation Changeling, not to mention spoof anybody's phone number. That's just a sample of the capabilities. And of course, all this is done under the umbrella of national security, which is really turnkey tyranny. A flip of a switch, they can target anyone, anywhere in the world. I mean, not only can they physically locate you and bug you through your cell phone or webcams, but the NSA operatives can find out everything about a target, from your most intimate communications sent through text messages, emails, to obtaining personal photos, to uncovering health problems, shopping habits, eating habits, political views, friends, families, acquaintances, political finances, gun ownership, etc. This power is so incredible that no man can really resist abusing it. And in the final phase of the New World Order, the Illuminati and their inner circle of government agents will come down on dissenters with a digital iron fist and make them just disappear down the memory hole like something straight out of Orwell's 1984. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're new. Check out some of the previous videos and the playlists. You can check out my book, Big Brother, The Orwellian Nightmare Come True, in paperback on Amazon.com, or download it right now onto any e-reading device. You want to put the pieces of the puzzle together. You want to get yourself up to speed. You want to see exactly what this system is capable of and where it's going and how it perfectly parallels George Orwell's 1984 and is even worse, as the general public are paying for their own telescreens to be installed in their living rooms, in their bedrooms, carrying them in their pocket, and installing them on their face now with the release of Google Glass, the head-mounted display. Anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. There's more videos coming soon.
Okay, so we are back, and I hope you enjoyed that short little clip. I think it's really enlightening to get someone's viewpoint who really sort of looks at what's out there and then puts it all together and kind of boils it down for you to make a cogent argument. And so this is what, of course, we always have to do. You have to, when you look at these major news events, you can't just take them at face value. You have to look at them carefully, because more and more and more we're seeing the spin doctors, the social engineers, the CIA spook NSA types, and even government politicians and unelected leadership people who are working behind the scenes You have to look at what they're doing. You have to look at who benefits. That's really what it's about. That's the first thing. And you can use your common sense to think about things, and when something happens, you have to think, okay, would this really be in North Korea's best interests to hack and into Sony and threaten them, and then they get all this attention. Remember, there's been all kinds of depredations placed upon the reputation of North Korea throughout its entire existence that are way worse than a stupid comedy by Seth Rogen, a goofball satire that no one is going to take seriously. And apparently the critics don't even think it's that good of a movie. I think there's even a possibility that the people over in Hollywood, Seth Rogen and his mischievous crew, might have drummed this up as a publicity stunt. But whether or not it was or not, it does play into the geopolitical game, the huge game, the very, very dangerous game that the world players are engaged in, and that would be demonizing North Korea, also getting us to think about the danger of North Korea instead of all the other things that are going on. You have to keep people's minds, you have to prevent people from getting their minds too focused on one particular news story. Shoot it to them one day, let them digest that as long as you want, then move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Keep the viewer off balance, keep them sort of confused, have a lot of contrasting news stories, one happy, one sad, one pulls at your heartstrings, one funny, and it just keeps them flipping from one mindset to the other. And before they can really go deep with their thought process into a particular story, into the ridiculousness of it, then you hit them with something else. So this is the world we live in, and we have to be very careful that we don't get sucked into it and allow ourselves to become victims of the social engineering process, the brainwashing process. If you do nothing but watch mainstream TV and listen to mainstream radio, you essentially will not learn anything. You will never really know what's going on. And this is deliberate. I talked to my cousin about this, who's has a degree in journalism out in California. And she can't even get she had a journalism job, but she can't even get a job in journalism now. It's changed so much and it's tightened up so much that I don't think she even knows what to do or where to go, who to talk to about actually participating in this crazy business of journalism. I told her that one of the difficulties that presents itself to the viewer on television is this constant pairing off of the pro and the con. So you have, on a typical news program, you have the commentator who sets up the whole situation, lays out the story about what happened or what appears to have happened, and then you have then puts on one person who appears to see it one way, and then you have another person who sees it another way, very different, diametrically opposed, 180 degrees difference often. One person says yes, another person says no, and then they just set them going. They just say, go, you go first, and they switch back and forth, switch back and forth, switch back and forth. And you you never really find out which person is lying. Now, one of these people has to be lying, but the commentator just says, okay, well, thank you very much for coming, and they go, thank you, and then off to the next story, and you're sitting there no wiser, really no wiser at all. They haven't tried to actually get to the truth, and they count on this. They very much count on this. The government counts on this. The anti-government people count on this. I mean, they don't want you. They just want you to be a willing sort of a viewer, someone who just watches the show, the grand show that they're putting on, and it becomes a form of entertainment. And of course, we know that they use the advertisements to mold your thinking from a very young age. Children as young as 2 and 3 years old are targeted by the advertisers, and their thinking processes are manipulated so that they might, for instance, there's a brain lock with a particular product, and they have it in their head, and it may be even subconscious, that this is what you buy if you want to get such and such accomplished. You wash your clothes, you buy this detergent. You wash your dishes, you buy this. You have the hair and skin products, you use that particular brand. The cereal that you eat in the morning, this is your cereal. This is what you've eaten since you were, this goes on into adulthood. They call it branding. And a kid who's 3 and 4 and wants and demands a particular cereal will carry on eating that cereal right up into adulthood and even through his entire life. He doesn't know why he really does. That's just the way his brain is worked. It's like you get into your car in the morning and you go to work in your car. That's your car. You don't walk into and get into someone else's car. You get in your car. And the type of food you eat, the type of clothes you wear, the brand names that you like to buy, that is your brand name. Those are your clothes, that's your car, that's your food, that's your health care products, facial creams, you name it. This is what they strive to do. And they're competing with each other to get your business, not just once, but repeatedly over and over throughout the course of your life. And these particular products may not even be very good for you. They may not be the best product at all. And really, like for instance, soap or something, I've found that the best kind of soap you can't even buy in the store. The soaps that are the really good soaps actually are made by craftsmen, local people who use top quality ingredients and don't include a lot of filler. And they don't just fill it up with salt, which is essentially what they use in the cheap soaps, but they use high quality oils and things like this. And it makes a difference. It does make a big difference in the cleanliness and the health that is imparted by the product. But there's, like I said at the beginning of the show, there's a lot going on. Barack Obama is really wowing people, I guess, now. He's got Putin kind of set back on his heels. The ruble is falling in value now, and this is deliberate. This is not happening just for no reason. It's a result of very powerful forces that have been set loose. They've unleashed the dogs against Russia and the ruble, and they're going full tilt to try to see if they can destroy the economy of Russia. And it's back to the old Cold War competition that struggle for natural resources that are to be found in so many places of the world in pristine, untapped form. And of course, they don't forget about China either. There's a lot of pushback to the expansion of China, even though you have other forces that are actually helping China to expand. So it's a push-pull situation between government policy and corporate policy. Although oftentimes government and corporations work together in tandem, but sometimes their ends do not mesh necessarily. And this is where you will find government crackdowns on criminality in corporations when they get out of line, when they don't kowtow to the leadership at the very highest level. The people who control the United States and who control the world, they like to have a threat that they can hold over the head of a person in power, a powerful corporate leader, for instance, a CEO. And this goes pretty much across the board. Even in movie stars, to get where they are, have to cross a certain line, a moral barrier oftentimes, and they get anointed. They become the anointed ones. They are the ones that are pushed. They're selected because there's a certain hold that government at the very highest level has over them. They may be a pedophile, they may have other vices, drugs, or whatever. These things don't necessarily happen just by themselves, that we find people in very, very high levels, high positions, have some deep, dark secret which suddenly gets revealed. Bill Clinton is the perfect example of this. Now, why would a person like Bill Clinton become president? Was it really because he was so wonderful and so incredible? Or was it because he allowed the CIA, the Reagan administration, George H.W. Bush, and all the cronies who were working together to further their agenda back in the 80s, is it perhaps because he allowed them into Arkansas? He allowed them to have the use of an airfield. Now, people claim that, oh, Bill Clinton didn't know about MENA, about the secret manufacturing of weapons, about the drug running between Nicaragua and other Central American and South American countries, and MENA running in tons of drugs, mostly cocaine. At that time it was cocaine, into the United States and distributing it throughout the United States to pay for the black ops that were going on to support the Contras in Nicaragua. If you remember correctly, Nicaragua had an amazing revolution in 1979, overthrew a brutal dictator, became a country which was not a client state of the United States, therefore became an enemy. Their views were socialist, but I think that has proven over time not to be really an issue. That's more of a cover story. Oh, they're communists. We got to get them because they're communists. It's not because they're communists, or they have a human rights problems. You know, they're abusing human rights. It's not none of that. It's purely economic reasons, and it's all part of the larger game of power, which translates to economics and power. It's the same thing, but this is what you see happening over and over. Bill Clinton also, they got 2 for 1 with Bill Clinton. Not only was he an insider and knew about MENA but didn't say anything, but he was also compromised. He was a sex addict, essentially. And he had compromised himself over and over and over with women already, even as governor. Even as governor, he was just out of control in that department. And, of course, this continued on even after he gained the presidency. Now, the relationship between Bill and Hillary, I don't even want to speculate. I don't know what kind of relationship. But the women that his womanizing, rampant womanizing, was something that the controllers knew they could use against him to destroy him, to not physically assassinate him, which is dangerous and not always the best thing to do, but to weaken him to the point where he becomes flexible, if he became a problem. Now, Bill Clinton certainly was not a stupid guy. He is still alive, of course. I shouldn't be using him in the past tense. He is not a stupid guy, but nevertheless, he had a serious weakness, and it made him a perfect candidate for the presidency. So he was able to but at some get the presidency, but at some point in his second term, he did something, or he refused to do something. He did not play ball. He displeased the controllers in some manner, and either they sicked Monica Lewinsky on him, or they simply used another affair that he was having with an intern and blew it up. And of course they were aware of it. They knew everything that he was doing. It's not like you were going to, in this day and age, a president's affairs are not going to be known by the surveillance state, which would, even back in the 90s, was fairly well in place. I mean, Bill Clinton himself helped to bring that early version of the surveillance state into reality, into fruition. It was called Echelon, and they had the ability to tap the emails and phone calls and all this. So they used this, and they distracted people from what was going on in the world for almost 1 year, one entire year. And I remember that year and how sick I got of the Monica Lewinsky scandal every day. Without fail, it would be the top of the news. And it was a way to disable him, to hobble him, and because he was a formidable political animal, very bright, very cagey. He was running circles around his opponents, both in the Democratic and the Republican Party, time and time again. He's a brilliant man, and it's a shame, in a way, that he wasted his talents in a position which, on the surface, has so much power, but underneath is, you're forced, you're constrained to toe the line and play the game and do what your masters, your puppet masters, have put you in that position in order to do, to push forward the agenda. Bill Clinton told us that NAFTA and GATT would be really good for the country, and of course it turned out that that was only the beginning of the major deindustrialization of the United States that we've seen since then in the last 15, 20 years. We've only seen it progress further. Now we're saying we're supposed to be happy. I hear in the news that yes, the Dow Jones has gone up again, and but we're not seeing the actual increase in value of those stocks. What we're seeing is a perceived increase in the value. The stock market is extremely volatile, and what goes up must come down. And what it appears to be is that they're jacking the stock market up, and they will get it up as high as they can, and then they will pull the rug out from under those who are not prepared for the huge correction that is bound to come, and they will lose a lot of money. And this is, of course, good for the biggest players, the ownership class, because they will be able to increase their holdings. They will be able to pick up corporations and all kinds of other assets for pennies on the dollar. Buying land. I mean, farmland. Farmland is, you might think, well, how much is that worth? But it's worth a lot. It's never going anywhere. It can create a product, or you can even make money on farmland just by not planting anything in the form of the subsidies. Many farmers today are subsidized to not plant. And why is that? Because if they do plant, that could bring, and there's too much of one particular product, that can have a negative impact on the prices of that product. It's the law of supply and demand. The more that there is of something, then the value of it goes down. And they don't want there to be too much of certain items. I mean, that's a very simplified way of looking at it. It also prevents maybe the farmer from going out of business, because the food prices go up, down, and ethanol, corn, the ethanol from corn, the prices of corn go up and down. Beef cattle, pigs, all this stuff, it's all big business. It's huge corporations running the show, manipulating the prices. It's no longer operating so much like a truly capitalistic society in which people are working very hard and trying to make the best product for the best price that they can. When you have all this interference from government, who are in the pocket of big corporations, giant industries, then it doesn't always work that way. It very often doesn't, because they can manipulate things on a very basic level and show favoritism to certain companies, for instance, who give them money or give them access or support them in some other way. And so one thing we have to make sure we do is to try to make a concerted and conscious effort to give our dollars for products, for goods and services, to people that we support, who we feel are doing the right thing, who are local, who are, in the case of food, maybe organic, or at least approach the level of organic. They may not be certified, but we know what they're feeding those animals. We know how they're growing their products, their vegetables, whatever it is that they're growing. That's important. That actually is a way that we as American citizens can make a mark, and it's a big impact. We can turn things around. We can change things. We have to be aware of that. It's making choices that will help us and help the country stay a republic, rather than turning into a corporate, tyrannical, fascist government, essentially. So we have to think about these aspects of it. very carefully before we just run around and buy things without thinking about it. I did a show recently about GMOs, and the sins of Monsanto and the other corporations, chemical companies, creating these patented seeds are coming home to roost. Almost every week I'm seeing articles in which people are rejecting the GMO. I just saw in the EU, I believe it was, the feed that was GMO is gone. They don't want it for their chickens, the chicken feed. They don't want it. They don't, and they were told, the farmers over there were told that, oh, there's not enough non-GMO feed to feed your chickens. Well, it turns out that was a lie. That was not true at all. And so they rejected it. And as long as there are options, see, because it does make a difference if a chicken or a pig or a cow eats a GMO feed, because this is on the genetic level. The genetics, that's very, very basic. It doesn't get any more basic than that. And so this is asking your body to ingest something. For one thing, it's asking or requiring the animal, the food animal, the chicken, pig, whatever, to ingest something which is inherently dangerous and unhealthy for them, that makes them sicker. And it actually changes their body chemistry in a very fundamental way. And then that meat, which is tainted, that gets eaten by a human being, and then the same thing happens to the human being. GMO, the things manipulated on the genetic level do not go away. It doesn't go away. Even if we got rid of all the GMO foods and we shut down Monsanto, put them out of business, we would nevertheless still have the tainting of the genetic pool in the various foodstuffs that have been tampered with. That would be out there. That would be essentially forever, I guess. We just have to live with it. And this is why it's such a big crime. Many poisons, if you stop putting them into the environment, will simply dissipate. And nature has a way of negating the poisonous effects over time. Give it time. Like, for instance, oil. I mean, oil is really bad when it gets into, this is crude oil. It gets loose, there's a leak in a tanker, it gets into the water, it gets into the dirt, gets into the animals, gets into microorganisms. It breaks up into tinier pieces and spreads through the environment, and it washes up on shore, then it gets buried by sand, and it's still there. It's still there, but eventually it will be degraded. There are tiny animals that will actually ingest the oil. It has a nutrient value for them, but it takes maybe a long, long time. Maybe 100 years, maybe 200 years, I don't know. And that's 100 years or 200 years is a relatively short span of time when you consider the life of the planet, or the life of the human race, which is, my understanding, it's up to, well, for Homo sapiens, 150,000 years now. That's what they're saying, if I remember correctly. Human beings that we think of as humans, in other words, Homo sapien, have been on the planet. Now, things have changed a lot in 150,000 years, but 150,000 years for radioactive waste, is a pretty long time, but it's not going to get rid of it. The half-life of some of that radioactivity out there is 250,000 years. So the only hope we have for that is that non-radioactive material will bury it, eventually will cover it up. In the meantime, in the short term, we're sitting on the ultimate disaster movie, and it's like a nuclear war is waiting to happen and is happening, in fact, in slow motion. It's like we're having a nuclear war, but it's just happening in slow motion. And what's the result of a nuclear war? That is that you have total devastation, radioactivity, mutations, mass death, poisoning of the habitat, of the environment, and the Earth becomes suddenly a much less hospitable place to live in, much more difficult. It's not romantic like various fiction writers and cartoonists, like comic book writers, like the people who created Spider-Man. They used to think that maybe radioactivity was good because it would make you have superpowers. If you got exposed to radiation, maybe you might get superpowers. You might become Spider-Man or the Hulk or one of these other results of radio. I believe the Fantastic Four went through some kind of a radioactive cloud and they got all these powers, and one guy was able to stretch, and then Invisible Girl, well, she turns invisible. And this is the fancy of fiction writers who are hoping for the best. Well, this is what those people were actually told back in the 50s and the early 60s. And maybe scientists really believed that, or maybe it was just propaganda to make the nuclear power industry look okay. Yeah, it's okay if you get some radiation. It could be good. Mutations could be good. They go both ways, right? Well, in reality, we found that these type of mutations do not particularly help people. They're more awful. They're horrible. They're debilitating, and they cause mass suffering and mass death. But this is what we're up against. This is the major threat. And if you look at the long term, and yet we're seeing that nuclear war card being pulled more and more. I mean, we were just talking about Russia just a few weeks ago, that the Cold War was back. Russia is threatening us with nuclear weapons. America is getting ready. They're all going head to head, toe to toe. Now this week it's North Korea. We're supposed to forget about Russia apparently for now. And so we wonder, when is the big confrontation with China going to happen, or whatever? What other country has nuclear weapons? Israel, we won't see a confrontation with them. Iran. Sooner or later, I'm expecting the United States government to announce that Iran now has nuclear weapons. And in reality, they probably already do. They've been developing them for years. We've been hearing about this since the early 2000s. So that's 12 or 14 years, maybe even from way before then. How long does it actually take in today's world for a country to create a nuclear weapon with a reasonable delivery system? How long does it take? I mean, it can't take that long. The technology has been out there since World War II. That's a lot of years. That's a lot of years. So you cannot tell me that Iran perhaps doesn't already have one, or several nuclear weapons. Now they have said that, well, we're using nuclear technology for peaceful purposes, but the U.S. government has been telling us for years now that no, they're not making it for peaceful purposes. They're making weapons, but they just haven't reached it yet. And I remember hearing on the news, well, it's going to be 5 years. Well, that was probably 10 years ago. It'll be 5 years before they actually get a nuclear weapon. And they're not telling us why. let's assume that Iran has a nuclear weapon. If you notice, we have not attacked Iran, and this is what typically happens, is when a country has nuclear weapons, then the United States does not attack them. We've seen this over and over. When they disarm and try to get along with the United States, then they get destroyed. Saddam Hussein did that. Gaddafi did that in Libya. Assad got rid of his chemical weapons. He allowed them to come in and dismantle all that apparatus, so we're told. And so what's going to happen with that? Are they going to go in and attack Assad? And why are we focused on North Korea right now? Maybe we'll find out in the next few days or the next few weeks what's really going on with North Korea, that for some reason we're supposed to focus on that. It could be just a distraction from something else. What else is going on? Could it be that the economy is actually getting worse, but they don't want us to look at that, and so they come up with these numbers and they jack the prices of the Dow Jones Industrial up artificially, but everybody's so focused on this ridiculous story about the hacking of a Sony, and we're supposed to all get upset about that. But one thing we can tell for sure, one thing we do know for sure, is that this is a perfect opportunity for the controllers to clamp down and tighten down the screws on the First Amendment. We're seeing Americans go, this is, they should not have made, those Hollywood people should not have made this movie, because this satirical movie about North Korea, because look how badly the North Koreans have taken it. They've hacked Sony. They've threatened us with a new 9/11. And these Hollywood irresponsible rascals, these scoundrels, like Seth Rogen, who we know is a dangerous character, they should be prevented from making movies like this. And what does this tell you? It's a mindset that people get in. Well, yeah, that's obvious. You don't want to be pissing people off or annoying people or getting people mad at you. Just, we need to stop making movies that are critical of governments we don't like. Oh my gosh. What does that mean? Does that mean that maybe the U.S. government at some point will say, we are insulted that you made this movie satirizing us, and therefore we're going to ban it. It's bad. It wasn't nice. Our feelings are hurt. It's very insensitive that you would do that. So could it be all part of the much larger agenda that just ramps things up slowly? They take years doing this. They're getting so good at this. Or, various shows that we see on TV, I don't see them, but I hear about them, about these bikers and these Americans who are really bad, really evil, Breaking Bad, this biker drug runner, murderer movie, TV show, which I can't remember what it's called, but I haven't seen it, but and just these evil American men who are dangerous and anti-government, and they could be terrorists. And we need to stop these people because they're a threat to national security. Well, this is all part, of course, of the larger picture stemming from the decision that was made years ago, at least 5 years ago, to start ramping up the idea in people's heads that domestic terrorism was the new threat. Al-Qaeda is now white Al-Qaeda. Domestic, these are Americans. These are not Muslims. These are not from other countries. They're not foreigners. But ordinary American citizens could be a threat to our government, to our wonderful country that we live in and love and believe in. And no matter what our country does, it's good because it's America and we're special. We're exceptional. And there's no possibility that America could be taken over by fascist, anti-Republican, anti-democratic powers who are essentially money and power hungry sociopaths. There's no possibility that that could be an issue whatsoever. But we need to stop these people who are saying bad things via satire, and I don't care how funny it is, it doesn't matter. It's not funny to be making fun of governments. And they have sensitive feelings, and so is this the direction that we're supposed to be going in? Or should we take a look at a movie like The Interview with John Desai? I wonder how much money they'll make on The Interview, even though it's not going to be showing in theaters. It's just incredible to me that they actually had the power to pull The Interview from the theaters. And this is just amazing. Apparently they were going to premiere it around Christmas, and it was a feel-good comedy, ha ha ha, Seth Rogen. And now they're not? What kind of world do we live in? This is absolutely amazing. It's mind-blowing to me. So that's all there is for today. Enjoy your weekend and have a wonderful holiday season.